Hi lovelies, my name is Raphiat and you're welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time of stopping by, you're welcome, and if you're an old subscriber, you're also welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make shortbread, the standard style of making shortbread, and in this video, as usual, I'm going to be spilling secrets. So let's get right into it. I am really excited about this video. We're starting off with some butter. You can actually use margarine, but butter gives a better feeling of what the original Scottish shortbread looks like. So I just took it out of the pack and I just transferred it into my bowl. And make sure your butter is at room temperature because it's going to be very easy to mix and you don't want your butter to be too cold or frozen. So mash your butter with a spatula and stir it all together, and once you're done with that, the whole stirring process, you're going to go in with some icing sugar, or what is also known as confectioner's sugar. I'll be passing the confectioner's sugar through a sieve and mine is in lumps, so I had to use a spoon to break it up into, sizes that can pass through the sieve easily. And that's what I'm doing here. And once you're done with that, keep on shaking the sieve so that the sugar can pass through the sieve. So it's always better to use confectioner's sugar, which is basically powdered sugar, than granulated sugar. But if you choose to use granulated sugar, then you have to do the mixing with a hand mixer so that it can help break up the sugar. But using a powdered sugar is way better because it makes everything easy. The whole process is going to be easy, and before you know, you've mixed your butter and sugar in seconds, literally. Both the butter and the sugar are at room temperature, which is why this mixing process is very easy. As you can see, it's going on seamlessly and everything is coming together just fine. So make sure that they are both at room temperature. And for dry ingredients, I'm going to be using all-purpose flour and some cornstarch. An important thing to note is how you add the dry ingredients. You're supposed to do this bit by bit. So I just added about half of the total measurement of the dry ingredients I'm using. That's the all-purpose flour and cornstarch. Half of them, I'm just going to shake the sieve and let them pass through before going on to add the second half. So before I do that, I'm just going to mix everything together, making sure that they are well combined and they look good. The reason you have to do everything bit by bit is basically because you don't want to overwork the dough for making shortbread. The dough for making shortbread is extremely delicate. So if you overmix the dough, everything is going to shatter, trust me. But mixing it gently, adding the ingredients bit by bit, is going to make sure that the shortbread turns out perfect, just the way those you buy from the stores, how they turn out. So this process is very important. Okay, so mix everything together. And another thing is, make sure that all your ingredients are at room temperature. You don't want to use cold ingredients at all. So all I'm doing now is to mix all the ingredients together gently. As you can see, I'm not doing this vigorously. I'm not doing this so fast. I'm just doing it gently, just to bring all the ingredients together. And once I'm done with that, I'm just going to transfer this to a dry surface. At this point, the dough hasn't come together, which is why you have to transfer to a surface. You can actually do this in the bowl, but I prefer to work on a surface so I have more space. And this process is basically a process of bringing the dough together, not kneading the dough. You don't have to be vigorous in this, just bringing the dough together gently, just the way I'm doing it, because like I said earlier, you do not want to overwork the dough for your shortbread. So just bring the dough together, then transfer to a Ziploc bag or any bowl that has a cover, anything like that. So I'm using a Ziploc bag. I'm just transferring this into my Ziploc bag, and I'm going to pop this in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes to 1 hour. While that is happening, let's go ahead and prepare the parchment paper, what is also known as baking paper. I'm just going to cut a piece out of the baking paper. A piece I feel is enough to accommodate the shortbread. So you can actually do without the baking paper or the parchment paper, but I prefer to use it because it's easy. So you know me, I like easy peasy. So after about, I think I left mine for about 40 minutes, this is what we have. I'm just going to spread this into the baking pan thoroughly. I'm using a square baking pan. I'm just going to use my hand to spread it to get all to the edges. So now I'm just going to lift the baking paper out of the pan. This is because I want the surface to be smooth. So after lifting it out, I'm just going to use my rolling pin to flatten the dough out. Please, not because I said flatten. When I mean flatten, I don't mean you should spread it the way you spread the dough for chin chin or anything like that. Just use the rolling pin to smoothen the surface, not exactly flatten, smoothen the surface so that it turns out seamless. As you can see, the surface is getting smoother as we are, rolling the rolling pin all over the dough. So now I'm just going to use my spatula or anything straight to kind of make the corners very straight, because when you buy your shortbread, they are very straight and they look pretty. So that's what I'm trying to use my spatula to achieve. I want them to look pretty, okay? So repeat this process until all the sides look perfect. So along the line, I decided to use a baking pan that is wider so that it can be easy to work with. So I'm just using a wooden skewer. You can also use a toothpick to mark out the size I feel is going to be equal. You can actually use a ruler to do this so it turns out perfect. And after that, I'm just going to use a knife and cut out from the parts where I marked. What we are trying to achieve here is to mimic that standard shortbread look. So I'm just going to cut until I'm done, with the marks that we made earlier. And when doing this, try and be fast. Okay, this is a tutorial, so it's not, as fast as if I was doing it off camera. So try as much as possible when you're doing this, be fast, simply because you don't want the butter and the dough itself to start melting, since this is not in a, cold chain or anything like that. So be quick with this. After that, you're just going to make another cut to cut the dough into two. This is going to depend on the quantity of ingredients that you use, but the measurement I'm using for this recipe, just cut into two and you're good to go. So I'm just using a fork to make marks on the dough. This is to mimic the standard shortbread. So make sure you do this, because at the end of the day, it's going to give you that lovely shortbread look and feeling. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So that's what I'm just doing right now. Let me mention this. Feel free to actually make your shortbread in absolutely any shape or size you want. I mean, there are shortbreads that are circular, square, and all that, so it's not limited to this. Feel free, get creative, and use absolutely any shape or size that you prefer, and the feeling is going to be the same, the taste is going to be the same. So once we are done with that, I'm just going to go ahead and bake at 160 degrees for about 30 minutes. And after that, this is what we have. So all I'm going to do now is to use a knife to gently separate them, because at this point they are getting hard, and if you allow them to stay for so long without separating them, the shortbread, they are going to break as soon as you try to separate them, force them to separate. So once you're done baking, go ahead and do the separation if you want them to turn out seamless like this one. This is another reason I always recommend that you use a baking paper when baking. Look how everything is separating seamlessly, because it's not sticking to the baking pan at all. So always use baking paper, and you can buy baking paper from absolutely any baking shop. It's very common. And this is the end result. First of all, I love the color. It doesn't look too brown. It just has the same look that the authentic shortbread has. And it's crunchy too, so you can have this with tea, with milk, or anyhow you like it. I hope you try out this recipe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.